Thank you for joining us today. Today I'm talking to Father Matt Stewart, our new associate pastor at St. Francis Xavier. How are you doing today, Father Matt?
I am doing very well. Angela, how are you doing?
I am doing very well as well. Thank you. So I understand you had a connection to College Church before you came. Tell me about that.
I did. So I was an undergraduate student at St. Louis University from 98 to 02. And so every Sunday night at 10 o'clock, I found myself at College Church praying and worshiping with, 1,000 other college kids. And it was just a really dynamic place to be. It was really the only place to be on a Sunday night. And it was just a great lively place to be and a great faith community to be a part of.
Wonderful. But you were given this assignment, and did you have a choice in the matter?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say a choice, no, but I was given various possibilities to consider. So when a Jesuit is going to be missioned somewhere, the first step is for that Jesuit, to say to the provincial or superior what's kind of going on in their heart. And so for me, I'd actually thought I would do doctoral studies this year. And the provincial said, no, you're going to do a pastoral year. I said, great, all right. Wasn't quite that quick or quite that easy for me, but but then he said, once he decided that, he said, here are 4 possibilities for you. And College Church was one of those possibilities. And it was funny when he said, a pastor, I said, well, what if I did something like at College Church and then something at Loyola Academy, kind of a hybrid? And he said, well, that's actually one of the possibilities I'm about to share with you. So it's just amazing sometimes that when you're praying and the Holy Spirit's involved, 2 people really completely independently of one another come to something very similar. And so I prayed through the other options as well, and it just seemed like this was the best fit, and he agreed. And so he sent me to College Church.
Well, very glad he did.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Angela. You're very sweet.
What was it like to finish seminary in pandemic time?
Yeah. Well, no stranger than anyone else's life, I would say. There were, I will say, some unforeseen and unexpected joys where I was living in a community. There were 65 of us, Jesuits studying in Boston, and we all lived in these individual houses around this central courtyard. So I basically was with the same 7 guys from the end of March, or middle of March, until the end of May. And so it was really a chance for our community to grow together, which Jesuits, as you probably know, were just all over the place and doing all kinds of things. And so we were really more together. And so praying together more, cooking for each other more. And it was just a kind of a beautiful experience of Jesuit community life that I didn't expect my theology studies to end with, Getting ready for an ordination in a pandemic was a different story. So many, moving pieces that as soon as we think something was good, the numbers would spike, or rules in the county would change, and are they going to change in the city? So all kinds of moving goalposts, and who can come, who can't come. A lot of people really wanting to come, but didn't feel like they could do that. So joys, strikes and gutters, as they say. But in general, it was, I found myself really able to kind of be present to lots of folks who were experiencing the same kinds of things. I had weddings I was supposed to be doing as a deacon that got canceled or rescheduled, and baptisms, and, hearing stories about people having to have, funerals that were much smaller or delayed. So my own experience was, certainly not comparable to a lot of those kinds of really difficult things. But, certainly not expected, and not something I'd ask for again. I'll put it that way. So.
Moving back a little further in your past, tell me about how you got hear, what are some moments in your faith journey that really stick out to you?
In my journey to being a Jesuit
Just in general.
in general, yeah, that's a great question. So I just kind of grew up a regular kid. Like I think every Catholic little boy and probably lots of Catholic girls think about being priests. But it wasn't kind of the thing I was going to do. Went to Jesuit high school, Jesuit college. In college, I thought about it a little bit. And actually, it's funny, in my fraternity, there are 4 of us who were there at the same time who are now priests. 2 Jesuits and 2 diocesan clergy, which is kind of cool. But didn't really seriously think about it until I started teaching. I was teaching high school at St. Louis U High for 6 years. I taught 1 year at Rockhurst High School in Kansas City, and then came back to St. Louis. And it was in those years of like teaching theology, directing retreats, planning liturgies, doing like pastoral counseling with students. I was sort of like, wait a minute, this could be like a thing. But then also like, just my prayer life and my spiritual life deepening, really befriending a lot of the Jesuits that were there at SLU High at the time. I was doing my master's in theology at St. Louis U at the time as well. And so kind of studying this in a more kind of focused way, just all of it started to pile up. And I went on a retreat, just a privately directed retreat down at White House. And I said I would like some clarity around my vocation. At the end of the retreat, the director, I felt no different. And the director said, I don't think you're going to get any more clarity. So I was like, oh, okay. And then decided to apply but it's amazing. Like, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is something that happens to other people,
Right.
Not to me. Like,
Right.
I'm a regular kid from West County that just kind of played racquetball in high school and, likes Taco Bell. It wasn't like anything special. I mean, everybody's special, but
You didn't see yourself as a prayer card, is what you're saying.
No, never. And it's great. It's just kind of the great imagination of God, I think, that that sets us on these places that that help us to become the best versions of ourselves. And I think if you ask friends of mine and family, they'll say you're just more you than you. So I think it's a sign of a good discernment.
Yeah.
Thank God I fell into that one.
What about holy men and women who have inspired you?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I kind of divide that into different groups. So I've never been like a huge saints person. However, there have been a few that have really stood out to me over my life. I know it's super cliche, but St. Ignatius I'm biased, I guess, as a Jesuit, but I just find his approach to the spiritual life so just resonates so much with my own experience of the world, of discernment, listening to the good spirit, hearing God's call and following that voice, to be Jesus's companion in the world. I mean, all of that just really, really is moving to me. Another saint that I find myself drawn to over and over again is Hildegard of Bingen, who I was introduced to as an undergrad here at St. Louis U in a music of women composers class that I was taking, and just loved it. I loved that class, and then I loved her music, just that chant, and then the more I've gotten immersed in her stuff, her spiritual stuff, her writings, her music, just the more drawn into it I find myself. That I think she's just a really phenomenal spiritual woman. I mean, at a time, when she was alive, of just like having clearance from the Pope to preach, and from like these being consulted by all kinds of royalty, and just this amazing woman founding a monastery and all this. So just love her a lot. That's sort of the saints category, but I mean, just tons of really moving people throughout my life. I mean, my parents, I think they'd be shocked to hear me flag them as holy men and women, but just really, I think we learn a lot about who God is from our parents, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And I learned that God is very compassionate and kind and supportive and a great listener, and just loving and accepting and wanting the best. That's the kind of house I grew up in. I've worked with a lot of really great people throughout my formation. And one that really comes to mind is a Dominican nun, Sister Jean Marshall, who started this center for refugees and immigrants in the Bronx, where I was living. And I got to work with her and taught English as a second language to immigrants and refugees, and just this one, she's a tough Bronx nun, but just loved these people and really showed me what it was like to work with a group of folks I'd never worked with. I think about a lot of my students that I taught before I became a Jesuit, a lot of the great men and women that teach at SLU High that I worked with and showed me the way. Some great Jesuits, Carl Starkloff, Ralph Houlihan, just some really amazing people. I've been so lucky to have so many folks in my life that have helped me hear God's call and to stay focused on it. Had more faith in me, frankly, than I had in myself at times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
What did you focus on in your studies?
Which time? I've gone to graduate school 4 times. I think maybe I've gotten it by now. So the first time was a general theology degree at SLU. Then I did a master's in philosophy at Fordham. Then I did a master's in choral conducting, music, at University of Denver. And then I did a license in sacred theology in Boston, and that my focus was in liturgy and sacraments.
What have you found out about liturgy from your time there?
That liturgy is an encounter with the divine, and that's true of sort of our vertical approach to God, but also our horizontal approach to one another. That it's not one or the other, and anytime we want to collapse it into one or the other, I think we miss out a lot. That it's at the tension of the horizontal and the vertical. But that signs and symbols have just imbued with deep meaning. And that meaning is different for people.
Right.
That there's what the sign itself, water washes, but then the church says it also means other things. And then, then there's the sense of what does it mean to me as I dip my hand into the holy water font as I go into church, So I love that aspect of liturgy, that there's a sort of natural component, a design component, and an experiential component. Again, that you can't collapse either one or the other. It's all three. In our participation in all three. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Father Matt. I look forward to
welcome, Angela.
working with you over the course of this year.
Thanks. Me too. Looking forward to it myself.